was about 11 years old, and my dad was a huge sports fan. And so we were watching, football was over, and we were watching basketball, and it was a exhibition game with athletes in action playing overseas against a Olympic team. And I remember standing there watching this, and I thought, one day I'm going to do that. One day I'm going to play overseas. And at the time I was 11 years old, so I wasn't that tall. And I remember just having this clear, vivid dream. One day I'm going to play like those guys overseas. It was years later, and I went to a college that didn't have I had several full scholarships. University of San Francisco, Chico State, several other ones gave me full scholarships, and my dad decided a bright idea. Why don't we send you to Bible college? And I went to Bible college, had no basketball team, but I met a guy there, and he goes, you know what? I put together a program that plays overseas, semi-pro, and we play all the Olympic teams from overseas. We'd love to have join us in the summertime. And so I spent the next summer playing in Costa Rica, Guatemala, Colombia, and Belize. And I thought, unbelievable that a dream I had when I was 11 is now being fulfilled. That's what I want to talk about tonight. I believe vision drives our lives. And the first thing I want you to realize, and I think I may have it up there, is life is confusing, and it will tend to misinform you if you don't know who you are and what you stand for and what you want. And each of these next pictures I'm going to show you is someone who had a dream bigger than themselves and a vision bigger than themselves, and you'll recognize them and you go, that's where they started. So there's a quote real quickly. So I want to bring up the first picture. There it is. The birthplace of Amazon was simple, housing a computer desk and basically office supplies. As the story goes, the first desk in his office was built by buying doors from Home Depot and attaching legs to them. You can see it right there. That's where Amazon started. I want you to get a good picture tonight because I want to stir you. I want to get you to the next level. Look at the next picture. In 1923, Walt Disney left his failing animation company called Laugh-O-Gram and used his last $40 to buy a train ticket to join his brother Roy in Los Angeles, where they began to make animated films out of their uncle's garage. Realizing he could not sustain a full studio out of his uncle Robert's garage, Walt walked up the street on October 8, 1923, 2 to 3 blocks to a local realty office called Holy Vermont Realty. The owners charged young Walt $10 a month for a small room in the rear of the building, and it became the first Disney Brothers Studios. Small beginnings. Look at the next one. Two brothers opened the first McDonald's car hop in 1937 after moving to California from New Hampshire. In the early years, they sold mostly barbecue. But after a decade, they discovered burgers were their most popular item, so they switched. All three of these mega businesses had three things in common. And I want you to get this tonight because I believe everyone in this room can cultivate those same three things. The first one is they all had humble, small beginnings. I think the reason we don't start something new is because we look at it like, well, this is way too small. What impact can this have? And we don't realize that everything that is something great started very small. And many times, as we just saw, in insignificant places. Zechariah 4:10 says it this way, do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin, to see the plumb line in Zerubbabel's hand. The history behind this verse that we're reading right here is quite interesting. If you read the Bible, they had this beautiful temple that literally was inlaid with gold. When you read about it, it was millions and millions of dollars in this temple, the first temple that David built. And you talk about every precious stone and silver and gold, and everything was beautiful. And when the Babylonians came in, they tore the temple down. They burned it so they could melt the gold out of it and in the walls. And after that, the children of Israel returned, and they said, and the Lord said, I want you to build another temple. And they had just basic stuff, wood and everything else. And they're like, this is never going to be the same as the first one. The first one was so beautiful and so immaculate. And the Lord said to him, he gave him this word, don't despise. Just because you think it's not as good doesn't mean it won't be. And he goes on to later say, the second temple will actually be greater than the first temple. And so I think that this is a huge key for you and I this morning is everything we do is always going to start out small. Number two, a vision is much bigger than their start. Every one of these had a vision of bigger than just being one restaurant, a car hop, one little garage studio, one little office in the back of his house. All of them had a vision bigger than their start. That means you've got to set goals and aspirations that are going to be significantly larger than your capacity or your ability to fulfill them. They're going to require substantial growth to achieve them. Instead of settling for small, which is easily attainable, you're going to have to go for big. There's another one I love, and here it is. Samsung, everyone knows that. Samsung started as a grocery store. Lamborghini started as a tractor company. LG started as a facial cream. And Nintendo started making playing cards. And the one we all know, IKEA, started as a pen. They all were small but had a huge vision, which leads me to the third one. You've got to have a willingness to go after it. One of my favorite stories is this one. A beloved Danish maker of plastic blocks sets had been a presence for toy shelves for decades. But there was a period where they were in serious danger. In 2004, the company posted a loss of $174 million and was on the verge of bankruptcy. The game changer was that in 2014, the company made a movie, the Lego Movie. And the rest is history. Every one of these things is vital. Having a clear vision for your life, I believe, is crucial because it provides direction. I think I have this quote right there. If you want to take a picture of it, I think it's something to hang on to this next year. It provides a clear vision for your life. And it's crucial because it provides direction, purpose, and motivation to guide your decisions, your actions, and your goals, helping you navigate through life with a sense of meaning and focus. Even during the most challenging times, essentially, a vision acts as a steering compass, steering your life towards what is possible. Without a vision, it's easily become lost in the noise of our daily distraction, making it difficult to achieve our meaningful goals. A well-defined vision is a roadmap. And I know some of you going, what's a roadmap? Well, it's that GPS in your phone. It's that ability to tell you, even though you hate it. I don't know about you, but we were traveling. I used to live in California. We were traveling from California to my wife's brother who lived in Arizona. And it said, there's traffic up ahead. And it says, take a right here. And I'm like, we're leaving the freeway. And we went up behind the mountains of Palm Springs. And I'm like, what? We're lost. And lo and behold, it dropped me right down on the other side. And I'm like, this dumb thing was right. I was wrong. And a vision is the same thing. It tells us how to get where we want to go, even though we think that's not the way to get there. It helps us align our actions and our core values, our passions and our aspiration. It allows us to focus our energy on what really matters and allows us to move closer. Essentially, a vision is a compass steering us towards what we want. And that's why the Bible is so clear. And here's our first verse tonight that is so clear, but it is so misunderstood. Where there is no vision, the people perish. These two words have been grossly misunderstood. And I want to clarify them tonight, but because they're key to what we want to do. The word vision in the Hebrew means a communication from God, whether it's a dream, an impression, a word, or an image in our heart. Where there is no communication from God, an image, an impression, a thought, a word, Where there is no vision, the people perish. And the word perish doesn't mean to die. It means to run out of control, to be exposed to danger, or to run aimlessly. Without a clear vision from God, we tend to just kind of aim at everything and we just keep going. I'm going to share with you tonight some of the things that have happened this last year in my life as a way to stir you on, because they're totally outside of what I thought I would want to do and what I want to be. Merriam-Webster's, I love this, defines vision as the act of power of imagination. And here's why I believe we have struggled with a vision is our circumstances, our environment, and where we are for so long has conditioned us to believe a certain way. I'm going to show you this in a story in the Bible. There's a story in the Bible, and the story is of Abraham. And God comes to Abraham and he says, Abraham, you're going to have a child. And Abraham goes, I have no idea what that is. My wife and I have been without a child. He's 75 years old, she's 50. And he said, we have given up all hope. We don't even know what that looks like. And the Lord says something clear to him. He says, Abraham, come out of your tent. And we just kind of read that and just move past unless we realize he's saying, Abraham, your whole life you've lived as a nomad, and this environment of your tent has dictated what your beliefs are, what your values are, what your dreams are, what your hopes are, and you have never saw a kid here. That's all you see. And if I want to get you to see what I want you to see, you've got to leave that tent. And he says, step outside. And the next thing he says is and he says to him, now look up in the stars. Abraham has looked at the stars probably thousands of times as a nomad living in a tent under the stars, but yet God says, look at the stars. And then he says this, as many as the stars are, that's who your kids are. God says, I have to reset you because your whole world is what you've lived in for the last 75 years, and you are conditioned to believe in light of that and funnel vision through that. So when I say you're going to have a kid, you just thought, well, I know I'll have friends that have kids and I'll treat them like my own, and that's what it means. And God says, no, that's not what it means. Then he's saying, but she's old, I'm old. Come out of your environment and get a new dream. And that's what I want to do tonight. I want to stir you guys up to dream, because God, I believe, invades our normal everyday life to remind us that we were created to do so much more. My wife today knows I was talking on this, and she sent me something, and I love it. And it was from Instagram, and she sent this to me. I'm going to bring it up real quickly because it wasn't a part of my message, but it's so good. And it's about a guy named Douglas Lunsden. I don't know if you know him. Douglas Lunsden was 43 when he first got his PhD. He was 51 when he started his dream job. He was 54 when he married the love of his life. He was 55 when he ran his first marathon. He was 67 when he published his first book. Today he's 70 and he can hardly wait for see what the future holds. You see, I believe God has so much more for us to do. But here's the thing. God wants to move our imagination to begin to think, what could happen this next year? What could you and I cultivate in our souls? What could we see? When you apply yourself to a vision, you can create a mental picture that can be used to direct your actions towards that. A vision serves as a guide and can be used to provide a sense of purpose. Without an end goal or destination in mind, you won't have a clear, defined path. In reality, vision is what, now listen to this, the end looks like. And when you do, you begin with that. There's a famous chapter written in the book by Stephen Covey on 7 habits of highly effective people, and he says this, begin with the end in mind. So how do you and I begin to get a vision? I'm going to give you 5 steps tonight, and I want you to use those, write them down, meditate on them, think about them, because I believe within this room, God has amazing things for you left to do. And here's the thing. Some of the things he has for you to do are outside of what you're presently thinking right now. Wayne, we can go and prepare that to pull it up in just a second, okay? So this last 2 years ago, so not this year, but the year before. So a year ago. I've prepared messages all through the last 30 years. But what you don't realize is for me, it was a very big obstacle to overcome. When I was in high school, they had this class, and some of you may know about it, it's called Remedial English. Anybody know what that is? English for dummies, okay? So in 10th grade, they said, hey, we need to put you in this class because you're not smart enough to be in regular English. So I went to Remedial English. And they said, okay, you passed it, we'll put you back in regular English in 11th grade, which I flunked. So they said, in 12th grade, we'll put you back in Remedial English. And they said, okay, now we're going to move you on. You go to college, do something with it. So I picked the one career that I don't need to worry about writing. It's called mechanical engineer. I'm good at math. I'm great at science. I don't have to worry about writing. And so I thought, this is good. This is going to be good. My grandfather was, and I thought, this is good. I get into college, and the guidance counselor says, you need to take 2 English classes. I'm like, oh, it's horrible. So I took the first one and flunked it. And so I thought, well, I got to take another one. And so I saw this thing called creative writing. I thought it can't be worse than the first one. So I'll try this one. So I went into it, and the teacher said, now listen, I don't care how you spell. I don't care your grammar. I don't care how you pronounce things. I don't care how you write them. I just want you to write down your thoughts. I said, I can do that. And I began to write down my thoughts, and I began to realize, well, that I can do, which is how I create messages. But throughout the years, my wife has been telling me, you should write a book. And so in order to get her off my back, and my wife is amazing. She would be here tonight, but she's watching our grandbaby. And tomorrow's a special day. It's our anniversary. So, but thank you. She's put up with me for over 30 years, so we're good. So, but she said, you need to write a book. And I'm like, so after finally years of her telling that, I said, okay. And so there was this company that says, we're taking new offers of new authors. Just submit in writing. So I submitted 2 of them. I said, I fully expected them to go, thank you, but no thank you. All of a sudden, they wrote me back and said, we really enjoy your writing and would love you to write 2 books, and we would like you to start right away. I'm like, what? This is wrong. So I began writing for the next 9 months, and this year, so I made a goal last year to finish the book, get it published. This year in April, my book was published, and it really began to take on a great effect. Wayne's going to bring it up. It's called Resetting Your Life, Unlocking Your True Potential. It's on Amazon.com. It's on Walmart.com. It's on anotherone.com. But all of a sudden, I'm getting people all over the place going, wow, this is a great book. And I said, news to me. But here's what I want you to understand. I would have never written that because it was never in my mind as a vision to go, I think I should write a book. It was something that was in God's mind, something that God knew. And I've had some wonderful personal people write me and say, this is so impactful. I went through a difficult season. This helped me reset my life into what God has for my future. And it's really made an impact, which is what I wrote it for. It's not to be famous. It's to make an impact in life and help people. And it's really helped a lot of people. And I realized this is all because of vision. Say with me, vision. That's what I want to share with you tonight. 5 steps, because I believe there are things that God has for you that you've not even thought about. And I'm going to show you that in the Bible, that he wants to do this next year in your life. But you've got to do your part in cultivating that. So let's go to the first step in the first verse. Proverbs 6:9. A man's mind plans his way as he journeys through life. but the Lord directs his steps and establishes them. Let me say this before we jump into the first step. That's very important. And write this down somewhere. Make sure your vision isn't small and safe. Again, I'm a guy who failed language arts 3 years in a row. Writing a book is not safe for me. Why do I want to submit something for someone to reject? Here's what I found out when I started writing the book. Editors are amazing. They can fix my words to make it sound good. Do not make sure your vision is small and safe. You see, when visions are small and safe, they tend to come from us. Here's the thing I found. If you have a small dream and a small hopes and a small goal and a small expectation, you'll live small because that's what you have. But God has a bigger vision for your life. History tells us this. There was a time when Spain possessed the territories on both sides of the Straits of Gibraltar. So on their coin, they stamped 2 pillars of Hercules, which is what the true prominence of rocks were called. And on the scroll, the words were written, "No more beyond," meaning this is it. This is as good as it gets. Then came the discovery of the New World, and with its realization, there was a fact that something else was out there. So they changed the coins to read, "More beyond." I want you to change your mindset tonight to more beyond. You see, mostly our limits don't come from God, they come from us. My limits would have come from me, and I would have never written a book. The next thing I did this last year, because writing a book is not enough, is I started a business. I've been doing it usually my whole life, just helping people, but businessmen and women. And one of the guys I helped, his business just took off, millions. And he said, "I want you to start a business coaching other guys like you coached me." I said, "Okay, but no one's going to come to me. I'm a pastor." Well, I'm not. I'm the first pastor in a line of all business people. So I started a business. I just finished my first year of coaching, and I coach a lot of financial advisors. One of them just emailed me yesterday because last year he sold, so the year before I coached him, he sold $5 million in annuities. I said to him, and I used the tools we're going to use tonight, I said, "What do you believe is God's plan for you this next year?" He said 7.5. He just texted me or emailed me and said, "I just finished selling $8 million in annuities this year." I think anything is possible if we just take the limits off ourselves. You see, as I look in my life, I realized there was fear and negativity that had to be dealt with because I was no more beyond. I had to convince myself that there is more beyond. And the other challenge I saw in my life that I can help you with is when I see a vision come to pass, and this is what I'm going to do next year, I saw these 2 things come to pass this last year. It's easy for me to go, "Oh, that's great. This next year's a rest year." No, I'm going to stir myself and go, "Wait, I don't want to be comfortable with what I just achieved because I know that God is more for me. I want to be open to what God has for me." And there's a historical, again, I love history, and there's a historical significance to this. About 300 years ago, a shipload of travelers landed on the northeast coast of America. The first year, they established a town on that site. The next year, they elected a town government. The third year, the town government planned to build a road 5 miles westward into the wilderness. The fourth year, the people tried to impeach the town government because they thought it was a waste of public funds to build a road 5 miles into the wilderness. These same people who had a vision to travel 3,000 miles across an ocean, overcome hardship, watch friends die in a few years, have become so comfortable that they lost the hunger to vision again. So maybe for you, it's, I've got to stop thinking small, or maybe it is, I've got to stop being comfortable. I want to be in this tension of dreaming big and being very uncomfortable because it's what God wants to do in my life. 1 Corinthians, remember I told you God has something bigger that we haven't even thought about. Here it is. 1 Corinthians 2, verse 9. Read it with me as I read it here. Next slide. Do we have 1 Corinthians? I think we missed it. Huh? Oh, man, I missed it. So in your Bibles, you can read this. Sorry. Wayne's doing a good job and I'm not. All right, 1 Corinthians 2, 9. But as it is written, what no eye has seen, nor ear heard, nor the heart of man imagines what God has prepared for them that love him. Now what he's saying is your eyes haven't seen it, your ears haven't heard it, and your heart hasn't even imagined what God has for you. What does that mean is I've got to get outside of myself and get a communication with God that allows me to receive an impression, that allows me to see what does he want to do that's not even on my radar, and what does he want to accomplish through my life. I believe your vision sets a table for God to work in your life. When I finished writing the book, one of the guys I coached said, I want 80 of those. I'm going to give them to all the guys in my business. And all of a sudden the guys in his business go, this has changed my life. Another guy I coached, he said, I want to get 50 of those. I'm giving them to all the guys I work with. What I thought was invaluable and insignificant has changed already, not just 130 guys I know. What does God have for you? Because he wants you to set the table. Your vision actually can limit what God wants to do in your life. And here's the verse that I want you to see. Now unto him that is able to carry out his purpose and to do superabundantly more than all that we what? Dare ask. What's the next one? Think. Indefinitely beyond our greatest prayers, hopes, or what? You see, when you get a vision from God, and I'm going to show you in a second how to do that, it sets the table for what God can do in your life that you don't even realize. Maybe this next year the vision you have from God is to get remarried. Maybe that's your vision. I want to tell you that if that vision came from God, and we're going to show you how to do that, then God intends to do that. Whatever your past is, whatever the struggles were, doesn't limit God. Whatever says above what we could ask or think or dream. Like I said, I could have let my ability and my inability to manage language arts keep me from writing a book today. And another one that they want and I'm writing. Or God could reset my life. I have this simple rule when it comes to vision. Here it is. It's carried me through the majority of my life. If my vision doesn't scare me a little, and I mean the little, not a lot, it probably isn't God because I can do it without him. I'll say that again because it's huge. If my vision doesn't scare me a little, I know some people it scares them a lot, and I'm like, I think that's a little bit beyond God. If my vision doesn't scare me a little, it probably isn't God because it means I can do it without him. If it scares me, I need to rely on him to fulfill it. So here's the first step. The first step is to begin by listening, reflecting, and contemplating your passion in life that provides the environment for God to speak and move. So let me give you this, and I'll say this. My passion wasn't writing books. My passion was helping people. Because my passion was helping people, the book is the avenue to help people. So God was able to go, okay, because you got in touch with your passion, I can now give you an impression which causes you to go ahead and of course, I believe there's friends in our life, God puts in our lives that help push us as well, cause me to go, I'll just take a shot. I'll send it in. If I never would have sent it in, I never would have had. But that small impression pushed me beyond myself. You see, it's in this setting of listening, reflecting, and contemplating, God actually drops an impression into your heart, and the impression is, what if? What if you started a business in this area? What if you went on this dating site? Now, I'm not telling you what to do. You understand? I'm just giving you a bunch of what ifs. What if you talked to your friend and you guys opened a business together? What if you took that neighbor down the street to coffee? What ifs are the slight impression of God that opens our lives to new dreams. And how do I do that? What's the problem with our society? We're never listening, reflecting, and contemplating. We're on this 24/7, or we're on the computer 24/7, we're on the TV, or if it's Wayne and down here we're on the ham radio 24/7. But I want you in the next 3 weeks to carve out intentional time where you're just going, God, I'm just going to be quiet. I'm going to start thinking about my passions, and I'm going to be listening for impressions that you're going to drop inside my heart. Here's what I know. I have, my wife and I have learned this. So we have 6 beautiful children, ages 18 to about 36. And my job as a dad is to inspire them and to cultivate them to be all that they can be. And I'm not, by far, not the best dad. So here's my thought. Doesn't your Heavenly Father love you a lot more than I love my own kids? Yet He wouldn't give you an indication of what's the best for you? I don't think that makes sense. I think He would. What is He waiting for? Well, when I talk to one of my sons or my daughters, I'm waiting for them to be fully focused on what I'm about to say. I've learned otherwise, it's just going to out the window. So when they're fully focused, one of my sons loves to play golf, and I grew up playing golf with my dad, and so there's times I'll say, hey, no, I don't want, I got it, Dad. Okay, go ahead. You keep taking out windows on the other side of the, fairway there, and, I got to up my insurance, but if you listen to me, I think I got some ideas. And when he says, well, what do you think I'm doing wrong? Now I can say, I think if you just correct this a little bit, just get yourself turning a little bit more, make sure your arms, all of a sudden he goes, hey, that worked. Our Heavenly Father, your Heavenly Father loves you so much, He wants to have a conversation with you. So in the next 3 weeks, encourage you. Michelangelo, and here's why I want to encourage you. Once he drops that impression in your life of what if, you're able to carve out of your life the things that are not what if. And I love this story. This is a great story. Michelangelo was once asked, how do you carve in marble? And this is what he said, because it was a beautiful angel. And he said, I saw the angel in the marble, and I just carved everything away that wasn't the angel until it was set free. When you have a vision, you carve everything out of your life that's not a part of that vision, and you begin to move towards what God has for you. Once you have a clear vision for your life, you can take the next step. And here's the next step. Knowing what is the first step is what's the next step? And it's found in Habakkuk. The next 4 steps are found in Habakkuk 2:2 through 3. So you spent the last, between now and I know it's Christmas, but carve out some time where you just quiet and listen. That's what I'm doing. I wrote a book last year, started a business. What does God have for me next year? It's easy just to go, well, that's enough. I'll just do that. He may have something else I don't even know. It hasn't even entered into my heart or my thoughts that is His plan. So I'm going to be quiet and listen. Then once I'm quiet and I listen, Habakkuk said it this way, and I'll read it fully, and then we'll go into it. Then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision, engrave it plainly on clay tablets so that the one who reads it will run. For the vision is for yet an appointed time. It hurries towards the goal of fulfillment. It will not fail. Even though it delays, wait patiently for it, because it will certainly come. So the first word there is write. Once you have that impression, write down that impression. Here's what I wrote down. Write a book. And they already told me, I submitted 3 books to them, and they liked 2 of them, and they said, we'd like you to start with this one. So I wrote it clearly. Write a book called Resetting Your Life. Great. What do you written so far? Nothing. What do you got? Where I'm going. And so I then begin to sit down, and we'll go into this, and once I wrote down then I did the next step. So write down. A vision acts as a roadmap, allowing us to prioritize our actions and making choices that align with those actions, which means we filter out distractions. Someone would say to me, hey man, have you read this book? Not this year. Why not? I'm writing a book. Oh, right, you're writing a book. Yep, that's what I got this year. No matter how much you laugh at me, no matter how much you make fun of me, that's what I'm doing this year. I'd love to read a book, but this year I don't have time. And I love to read books. I have I don't know about you, but my wife always gets upset. I have 4 books I'm reading all at the same time. Bores me, so I read another one. I got ADHD. I read another one. But this last year when I wrote, I didn't have time to read. I had time to write. Anytime extra, I'm going to write. So the first step is write it down. And I want you to come in here. Our next meeting is January 4th. I want you to come in here with something written down. Because I believe God will speak to you if you give him time. And the way he's going to speak to you is, listen, it's not like, hello, Steve, I've got a word for you. It'd be like, wow, I think I should try this. I just felt like I should try this. That's an impression from God. Here's how I look at it. Anything that's smarter than me has got to be from God. Oh, I wasn't thinking of that. That's God. Okay. You see, I think we are so spooky spiritual with God that we miss him. We're standing there pumping gas, and then we get an impression. Go invite that person next to you to church. And we go, God, is that you? No, it's the devil telling you to invite someone to church. Come on now, all right? So again, just write something down. No one's going to judge it. It's what God is saying to you. The next step, the third step, he says, make it plain. The word plain means clearly. Make it clear. Something that's very clear that you're able to know. So for me, and I know I oversimplify, but it wasn't just write a book. It was write the book, Resetting Your Life. That kept me from writing any other books because that is not what I'm supposed to do from God. It's to write this book. I know what the next book is he wants me to write, and by God's willingness, I may do it next year. I know the next part of my plan. The guy said to me, hey, listen, if we're going to launch your business, we need you to get your website up and running. Well, I've got my whole team. And see, here's the thing. When you make it plain, God begins to give you the resources to accomplish it. And I'll talk about it in a second. When I said I'm going to start a business, all of a sudden God gave me the resources of the people to build the website, build the business, build the funding, build the way that people could pay for it, and build the avenue to be able to meet with people around the nation. All that came after I made it plain. And here's why you need to make it plain. If you don't make it plain, you can't do the next step. And that is, and he may run that move, it says, one who reads it will run. And the word run means to move fast. It actually means to move in such a pace that 1 foot is off the ground at a time. It's not just running like a jog, it's like you're sprinting. What he's saying is once you make it plain, you'll be able to do achievable goals to that. So let me go back to the beginning. My friend says to me, he says, I think you need to start a business. Okay, how do I do that? Well, we need a website. We need a way to build people. We need a way to communicate them because they're all over the U.S. So we're going to get you on Google Meet. We're going to get this other tool that's going to help you build them. We're going to get this tool that they can actually book their own appointment. You don't have to chase them down. And we're going to give you this other thing that works as well. All of a sudden, 5 things I never even thought about that I didn't even know about, they're doing for me. But see, when I began to set it into motion, God began to give me the steps of what needs to be accomplished. And then he gave you, and God will give you the resources. Why would God give you a plan and a vision without, God didn't just go, hey, here's your plan. Here's my plan for your life, Steve. Go at it. I'm not going to give you anything to do it. I'm just going to sit back and watch. God always gives you the resources. When I wrote the book, I have friends that have written books, and they said, yeah, my editor was horrible. God gave me the most amazing editor who knew that I was horrible in writing. And literally the editor was like, hey, change this, and this might sound better, and this. And I'm like, that does sound better. That's good. And it began to work as a team, accomplishing what God had for me because it was God's will. You've all heard this. Everyone knows what go back to the slide. Everyone knows what a BHAG is, right? Go ahead, shout it out. Audacious goals. That means there are things that are bigger than you can do by yourself. That means what? God's going to give you the people to do it. God told David, gather the resource to build the temple. David started gathering the resources, but as we read the story, God brought in the carpenters, he brought in the craftsmen, he brought in the people that work with jewels. Everything was set in motion that when Solomon arrived, he just said, here's all the resources, here's all the people, here's the plans, all you have to do is do it. All of that was gathered by David, and Solomon built it. Here's the last step. The next step is, and again, let me give you this real quickly. I want you to ask this once you get to this point. What steps are needed to achieve this plan? And here's what I want you to get. When you do that, there'll be two types of steps. What steps are needed to achieve this plan? For me, what was needed to achieve this plan? A website. Well, I don't design websites. So I can't just go out. That's not who I am. I'm not that kind of guy. I can't just go out and go, well, I'm just going to develop my own. What I realized is there are things I can do, and there are things I believe God will do, whether he's bringing me the right people or he provides the right resources. So I'm going to do the things that I can do and believe that God will do the things that he can do. So when your goals are divided into two parts, what can you do? Like, for instance, people go, I want to start a business. Well, have you gone to, there's community college that has these classes are free, how to run a business. Have you gone to one of those? No, I got a friend who, you see, if you do what you can do, God will do what he can do. Because it's a partnership. This vision is not from yourself, it's from God for your life, which means he wants to help you accomplish it. So what are the steps that you can do in that vision? It takes 7.2 million pounds of thrust to get a rocket out of the Earth's atmosphere. It's called escape velocity because of the gravitational pull. Here's the thing. God's got some goals for you to get out of your environment into the next. Let me give you the fifth and final step. And this is key. And it's so important. He says, even though it, what? Delays. I fully believe that most people give up on visions and goals because they don't come in the timing they believe. Abraham was one of those guys. The Bible tells us he waited almost 25 years from the moment he got the word to the moment it came to pass. Moses waited 40 years from the time he got the word to the time it came to pass. If the vision is from God, wait on it. He intends to do it. And what does that word wait mean? Here's what it means. To continue to be in a state of expectancy, entrenched in the idea that it will come to pass, fully trusting in a faithful God who gave you that. There are visions and dreams that my wife and I have that are 15 years old that haven't come to pass yet. But we are staying the course of doing everything we can that he's asked us to do, believing and that God, here's what it says. Here's the promise, and I love this. God doesn't tell you just to wait. I hate that poster where the cat's hanging and it says, hang in there. God just doesn't tell you to hang in there. He gives you a promise. Look at the promise. Because it will what? Certainly come. It will not delay, meaning be permanently stuck in that zone. God has given you the vision. God has asked you to take a step. And now it's up to you. Throw that last slide up here. It started like so many evenings. Mom and Dad at home and Jimmy playing after dinner. Mom and Dad were absorbed with their job and didn't notice at the time. It was a full moon and some of the light seeped through the windows. Then Mom glanced at the clock. Jimmy, it's time for you to go to bed. Get up now and I'll come up and settle you later. Unlike unusually, Jimmy went straight upstairs to his room. An hour or so later, the mother came up to check on him, and to her astonishment, found her son staring quietly out the window at a moonlit night. What are you doing, Jimmy? I'm looking at the moon, Mom. Well, it's time to go to bed. As the reluctant boy settled down, he said to his mommy, Mommy, you know one day I'm going to walk on that moon. Who could have known that that boy in whom that dream was planted by God that night would survive a near fatal motorcycle crash which broke almost every bone in his body, that 32 years later, James Irwin would step out onto the moon's surface as just one of the 12 representatives that's ever done that. How to come to pass? A dream and a vision, hardship and challenges, but never letting go, holding on. That's what I want us to do this next year. I want each of you to have a dream and a vision, and we're going to do something really cool and creative on January 4th. We're going to make some vision boards that we're going to take and post them around our house where we are, and we're going to keep reminding ourselves this is what God intends to do in our lives, in my life, in your life, in our life.